Hi, you guys. My name is Max Lurya. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of GlobalB Law. It's a law firm based in Istanbul. And it's a lovely day today. I hope it's lovely over there in Kiev. Today, I would like to speak to you all about Ofac FINCEN compliance for virtual currency exchanges. So I understand time is of the essence. I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay, here we go. Can you let me know if everyone can see my screen? Can you guys
Yes. Oh, we can see it well.
Okay, great. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is the Office of Foreign Assets Control. So a lot of you, most of you, if not all of you, are not based in the United States. You're not technically a US person, but you may want to solicit or engage individuals who live in the United States. For instance, I am an American citizen, therefore I am a US person. And no matter where I am in the world, I am subject to the jurisdiction of the Office of Foreign Assets Control. Why? Because I'm an American citizen. So let's say that you're an exchange and you want to do business with people or individuals in America. There's certain protocol, there's certain compliance that you need to follow in order to not, basically get in trouble with the Office of Foreign Assets Control. So let's start with what happens if I violate US sanctions, then I am in deep trouble. It's very easy to violate US sanctions. For instance, you may think that violating sanctions means that you are going to find an individual that's on the SDN list or listed person and engage in trade with them. Everybody knows not to do that. But did you know that I can also get in trouble for engaging in regular business with any individual that's merely subject to the jurisdiction of a government that's subjected to Ofac sanctions? That means that if you are in Crimea or in Cuba or in Iran, and you are a regular individual, you still meet the definition of subject to the jurisdiction of that government. You are ipso facto not a sanctioned person, but an individual that if I do business with absent an Ofac specific license, I'm in a lot of trouble. So you may be wondering, how does that apply to me? Well, it depends. Are you an exchange that shares a liquidity pool with individuals in the United States? Do you have anyone working at your company that's an American? The jurisdiction of Ofac, like the US government, is long, okay? It doesn't mean that you have to be an American citizen to be targeted by the Office of Foreign Assets Control. So let's start here now with what is Ofac. Ofac, I told you already, it's an enforcement agency of the Department of Treasury. However, why was it founded? It was founded in 1950, in the 1950s, under the Truman administration to deal with US sanctions leveled against North Korea and China. Okay, so that's the history of the Office of Foreign Assets Control. Now, Americans have been sanctioning countries since England burned down the White House in 1812. So China and North Korea are not the first countries to be subjected to US sanctions. However, under the Department of Treasury, under this very organized division of lawyers and intelligence analysts, it would be China and North Korea would be the countries that kind of triggered or started this agency. So over the decades, of course, it wasn't just China and North Korea that we wanted to level sanctions against. So here's a list of some of the sanctions programs we have. You have some that are related to individuals, some of them that are just related to regions. And US companies, believe it or not, they can trade lawfully with individuals and countries subjected to sanctions. They do it all the time. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that just because there are sanctions against Iran doesn't mean businesses can't do business with Iran. It simply means that they need to have a license. It's kind of like if you want to fly a plane, you need a license, but it doesn't mean you can't do it. But if you want to do it, you have to get specific permission. So I skipped a slide here. In fact, the Office of Foreign Assets Control has an entire frequently asked questions page dedicated to Ofac licenses. And this is what permits you to do business with a country that's under US sanctions. So for instance, a lot of you will be surprised to know that there's a Coca-Cola plant in Iran, in Mashhad. and they're producing Coca-Cola. Or you'd be surprised to know that under the Trump administration, Marlboro and an Iranian tobacco company signed an agreement. They have a memorandum of understanding, or I don't know the exact detail, but they're able to trade with each other. I have a slide there I got, and I'm going to show it to you now. So here's an excerpt from the Ofac page regarding countries subject to geographic sanctions. The question you can ask is, can I get permission from Ofac to transact or trade with an embargoed country? And the answer is, Ofac usually has the authority by means of a specific license to permit a person or entity to engage in a transaction which otherwise would be prohibited. Okay, pretty straightforward, right? And here it says there are exceptions. There are certain situations where even Ofac doesn't have the authority to do so. But generally, Ofac has the authority and the ability to override sanctions regulations if they think that, if they consider the national security interests and they decide that it's okay. So there are two types of Ofac licenses. The first one is a general license. And a general license means that you don't have to go to Ofac to apply for the license. Ofac has already created a license that exempts you from certain regulations, depending on whether or not you meet the criteria of that license. The other one, of course, is a specific license. But let's go first, before I say license all the time, and even though you kind of understand what it means, let's see what Ofac tells us it means. A license is an authorization from the Office of Foreign Assets Control to engage in a transaction that otherwise would be prohibited. And as I said, a general license authorizes a particular type of transaction for a class of persons without the need, now it's important, without the need to apply for a license. The second one, a specific license, means you need to get one. It's a written document Ofac gives you that says this transaction is authorized. Now, it could be a one-time transaction, or it could be something that you can do over and over again, repeat business, for instance. General license D1, again, this is a general license, meaning you don't have to apply for it to use it. It's already there for you. Permits some fee-based services to operate without the need for additional authorization. So general license D1 is applicable to the Iranian sanctions regulations. And this is what it looks like, basically. It just says effective a certain date, yada, 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 you can do something. Now, who's using general license D1? Skype, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. These guys are all in Iran. They're there because of general license D1. Sometimes, however, companies, they are more Catholic than the Pope. And even though Ofac doesn't tell them that they can't do business in a specific country, because they're so afraid of drawing its eye, or they're so afraid of being scrutinized by Ofac or being sanctioned by Ofac themselves, or subject to hefty fines, that even though you're permitted to do something, they simply, as a precautionary measure, lock you out. And that's what's happening with a lot of individuals right now in Crimea, a lot of individuals in Iran or in Cuba, where actually US companies are permitted to deal with them under specific circumstances, but don't do it simply because they don't understand sanctions and they're so afraid of making a mistake. You don't want to end up like, BNP Paribas with slapped with an $8 billion fine for violating US sanctions regulations. So in addition to general licenses, and I got this part here from the New York Times. It's a few years old, so there's definitely more by now. There are over 10,000 specific licenses that have been issued to 4,000 firms. Now, I haven't independently verified that, but the New York Times is a pretty trustworthy source. Let's see, how do you apply for a license, by the way? I kid you not, you literally press the apply for an Ofac license button on their website. You literally go here, you literally push the button, and there's just a few questions it asks you. Now, whether or not you're gonna get the license, no expert can tell you definitively whether or not your license will be approved. And any Ofac expert or compliance expert that tells you your license will be rejected, they can say that most likely it will be rejected. They can play with the odds, but unless you work directly at Ofac, unless you're actually in the loop, nobody has the authority or the qualifications to tell you whether or not a license will be approved or not. So here's an example of a company that got it, Pepsi. So Pepsi's in Iran, and this is from the New York Times. It just says this license authorized Pepsi to sell its products in Iran. Fantastic. Now let's look at Hollywood USA brands. It's not just like Coca-Cola or selling sugar water. It's not also just humanitarian things. I don't consider Philip Morris to be a humanitarian company. I don't consider manufacturing and selling cigarettes to be like a humanitarian issue. This is clearly business. So Iranian Tobacco Company and Philip Morris, they signed a joint agreement on joint production of the American company's best-selling product, Marlboro cigarettes. So there you have it. Of course, Coca-Cola, as I mentioned, even look, you have basketball players. Okay, they also need a license because they're getting paid money. So things that you would consider innocuous or completely innocent, you need a license for it if there's no general license. Kraft, Sportica, you can chew gum. Congratulations, you have chocolate bars. Now, what does Ofac say about virtual currencies? Because it does say stuff about virtual currencies. The first thing is for the purposes of Ofac sanctions programs. Now, by the way, this is direct from the horse's mouth. This is copy paste from Ofac. I want to make sure that we're not giving anybody anything that can be construed as incorrect information because we want to be precise here. So I've copy pasted this directly from Ofac's official website, the Department of Treasury. For purposes of Ofac sanctions programs, what do the terms virtual currency, digital currency wallet, and digital currency address mean? Okay, well, oops, I skipped that. So I went down here, I screwed up my slide. Here we go. A digital currency wallet is a software application. Okay, this is what Ofac says. So a lot of you, you're engineers, you're experts, and you're gonna tell me that this is too general. Well, the good news is that Ofac doesn't really care what the technical definition is. This is the legal definition as they see fit. So you have to meet, or you have to understand the way that they perceive virtual currency, because even though virtual currency exchanges, FINCEN, you know, they take care of dealing with exchanges and making sure they're complying with the law. Ofac makes sure that they comply with sanctions. So a digital currency wallet is a software application. You know, some of you may be saying it doesn't have to be a software application, but this is what they're saying, that provides a means for holding, storing, and transferring digital currency. Okay, the next thing here it says is a wallet holds the user's digital currency, pretty straightforward, which allow the user to receive digital currency. And what does it say about private keys? That allows them to, they need both of them. So basically Ofac says that if there's a public key and if there's a private key, it is a wallet. That's their definition. So now a wallet provider would be if you're an exchange. A wallet provider is a person, and mind the legalese here. Person doesn't mean person, it also means entity, that provides the software to create and manage wallets, which users can download. Okay, now a lot of you are saying, wait a minute, I don't allow my users to download any wallets on my exchange. Well, that's just their definition. You still meet the definition even if you don't do that. A hosted wallet provider is a business that creates and stores a digital currency wallet on behalf of a customer. Okay, so there you go. Now, a hosted wallet service would be like Binance or, you know, one of those. And a wallet provider would be like Atomic Wallet, right? But Ofac, they're pretty precise. I was pretty surprised that the federal government was so up to date with these terms or with understanding virtual currency, because they're very, very serious about making sure that individuals comply with US sanctions law. So we skip something up here. Here's a question. Are my Ofac compliance obligations the same regardless of whether a transaction is denominated in digital or fiat traditional currency? Okay, so what do you think the answer is? Obviously, the way I'm explaining it to you, obviously the answer is yes. Your obligations are the same. So let's now look, my slide got totally screwed up here. I had to force quit before I joined and then I came back to it, it looks like a mess. So here we go. Let's say that you have an individual who you obviously know should not be on the exchange because they are an SDN. How do you block digital currency? So now that you know that your obligations are the same, whether it's fiat currency or virtual currency, how do you comply? How do you put your money in a specific area like you would a bank? US banks that block virtual currency must put blocked funds in an interest-bearing account, meaning that that account must accrue interest for that individual. Because just because your money has been frozen does not mean that you don't have rights. The exchange simply does not have the right to steal your money simply because you shouldn't be on the website. So in a traditional bank, if some individual is blocked, you must still pay that individual reasonable amount of interest. So then the question is, what do you do, and what is interest like on a virtual currency that goes up 1,000, 2,000%? Well, that's a damn good question. How much interest do you accrue if you buy a coin that goes 100x? And this is an issue I'm sure Ofac hasn't really worked out, but we'll find out soon enough from lawsuits, of course. So once it has been determined that your institution is holding digital currency that is required to be blocked pursuant to Ofac's regulations, you must ensure that access to that blocked digital currency is denied to the blocked person. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. Now, you also have to make sure that you consolidate the wallets. You put them in a specific area. Okay, you can't just steal the money and say that your money's blocked, screw you, I'm gonna give you your money back whenever I want. A lot of exchanges have taken that policy, and there are a lot of individuals, especially in Ukraine, and that were mistaken for being in Crimea, like in Kharkiv, and their money was simply taken from them, and they were told the money was frozen. It was, the virtual currency was frozen. It was absolutely not frozen. It was not put in any specific wallet. This exchange, which shall remain nameless, most likely, I'm of the impression they embezzled the funds. They used the funds for their own illicit purposes as liquidity. And you don't want to be in that situation because Ofac will find you and they will fine you. So basically, as long as you have an audit trail, as long as you put it either in omnibus, wallet address, you name it, blocked funds, you're okay. As long as nobody has access to it and you're not using it for your own liquidity. So blocked accounts are for individuals who are SDN. Now, I want to make something very clear. The individuals who I just mentioned, who are in Kharkiv or in Crimea, these are not SDNs. These are regular people. They've done nothing wrong. They were just born in a country that's subject to the jurisdiction of the Office of Foreign Assets Control. I'm sorry, I screwed up that sentence. They were born in a country, actually, no, I didn't. I didn't have my coffee today, you guys. It was a good sentence. I'll check the recording later. So those individuals are not actually blocked. If you have individuals who are ordinarily resident in regions that are blocked or that are subject to US sanctions, it's your obligation to first of all, to close their account. But you are not supposed to block their funds because they are not SDN. In fact, you can't block their funds. So a lot of US exchanges in 2017, when they discovered that individuals were in Iran or in Ukrainian regions, certain parts in the East, they gave them their money back. And then other companies, other US exchanges who shall remain nameless right now, they decided that they weren't going to give it back. And there are a lot of individuals who in October of 2017, let me just give a random number because you know what I'm talking about. Let's say October 12th, 2017, they closed their accounts, froze their funds, and for a very long time, nobody knows what the hell happened to that virtual currency. They obviously didn't put it in a special account. They didn't put it in a special virtual currency wallet. The money kind of just disappeared. Now, the problem with taking away these individuals' money in October of 2017 and holding on to it for quite a few months is we all know what happened in January of 2018, right? I mean, cryptocurrency community experienced significant growth. And these individuals, their funds were used for God knows what, possibly even market manipulation. Who really knows? So when you are complying with Ofac regulations, we have to first make sure that we as the community, stop individuals who want to use United States interests, the interests of the United States, national security, as a pretext to commit fraud. Because what happens is sometimes these exchanges lure you on. They tell you that you can trade privately, maybe in a, I don't know, a correspondence where you ask them, can I trade? They have very, very ambiguous terms of service that don't mention the word sanctions specifically. And then one day you wake up and you realize you can't access your money. And then you find out that they tell you you shouldn't have been there. And because you're from Crimea, because you're from Cuba, because you're from Iran, your money is no longer accessible to you. And I think that this is a new scam we're going to have to look out for, especially as sanctions increase, where exchanges are not being held accountable for the funds that they're holding on to. And I'm not talking about a small little exchange here. I'm talking about some of the world's largest exchanges. And when you think about all the individuals who had their money frozen during that time, it is quite possible that some of the altcoins that experienced significant growth in January, it would be my guess, I'm of the opinion that those were manipulated simply because those exchanges had 10, maybe $100 million of surplus cash from individuals where they shouldn't have been on the exchange. And it makes sense, right? Because if you're not supposed to have those individuals on the site, it's kind of like the perfect murder. You know, they say, okay, I can't give you your money back because of Ofac. I can't tell you where it is. I'm not going to talk to you. But I have a $10, $50 million worth of liquidity. And it's kind of like on the same level as money laundering here, because everybody thinks that because that's not a specific wallet for that exchange, that it belongs to individuals on there, they're able to play with it potentially. They're able to manipulate the price of some of the lower some of the coins that really have very low liquidity, or not low liquidity, low market caps. So I think that I personally would be very interested if any of you in Ukraine or in Crimea, if you know anybody, if you're an individual who had your account frozen in October of 2017, I would like you to send me a private message. And for the rest of you, I hope that this was a good introduction to US sanctions compliance. And I look forward to seeing you all again next time. I would like to thank BlockchainUA for having me. And I wish I knew how to say something in your language. Like my friend told me, I can say this. Я хочу Ukrainsky говорить с тобой. Okay, that's all I know how to say. My ex-girlfriend was from Kharkiv. Okay, so nice to meet you guys.